Welcome back to Hashes Numbers. I'm Thomas. I'm here with my co-host.
Justin Kim.
And today, this is going to be the start of our off-season episodes. In this episode, we're going to be doing the AFC. And before we start with, the previews, I'm going to give a shout out to my co-host, Justin. During the season, it was a little easy just to watch the games. There's not much really research to do. But, Justin's been sick. Justin's got some stuff going on. Obviously he's got school and whatever. So during this week, I told him, hey, there's a hard deadline of, Friday at 8 when we're recording this to get his research done. And I wanted to test him, see if he was able to get his research done, and he did. So really big shout out to Justin here. Proud of you. Proud
hmm
that you locked in. You spent some long hours doing this research. It's gonna pay off right now. So we'll get started on the previews. I'll let you go first for all the teams. You can mention whatever you have for your research, and then I'll kind of chip in at the end. But for the Raiders, have the first overall pick. New head coach Kubiak, new offensive coordinator Andrew Janoko, the QB coach from Seattle, and the defensive coordinator is going to be Rob Leonard, a DL coach, D-line coach, running game coordinator that they promoted within the organization. What do you have for their offseason preview?
Or this like season preview, right?
Yeah, the offseason preview.
Yeah, I mean, I like summed up their season,
Hmm.
which I'm assuming you're talking about, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just said that the Raiders, they finished 3-14, which is like the worst. I mean, it was like a three-way tie or something like that. And their most impressive win was in week one where, they went against the New England Patriots, who eventually like got into the Super Bowl, which, I gave them a little shout out. But yeah, like you have mentioned that they got the first overall pick. Geno Smith struggled heavily this year with interceptions and even sacks, which we'll talk about the needs later. But yeah.
Yeah, you kind of summed up the season there. Tough season, obviously, when they got Pete Carroll, when they got Geno Smith, they didn't expect to have, the first overall pick. But now Pete Carroll's gone. Geno Smith is probably on his way out. So we will talk about the offseason here. Do you have their cap, their situation in money?
Yeah, they have 90 million.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we kind of went through positions that we think they need. So yeah, you want to go first with that?
With like position I think they need, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just said, first of all, like main, I said quarterback just because Geno Smith, he's getting old and yeah, he's just getting old and he was struggling this year. And I also put out that they need a wide receiver since, they traded away Jacoby Myers this season. And they also need to, protect Fernando Mendoza. So I just put out O-line as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I have quarterback, obviously, but they're probably gonna address that with Fernando Mendoza. I think they should get a receiver, right? Obviously, like you said, they traded Jacoby Myers, so I think they should go get a receiver on the market. Um, Left guard, right tackle, center, some position on the O-line to protect your franchise QB. And then on defense, I think they should get a D tackle and a linebacker. They got a couple of key guys, free agents, Devin White and Landon Roberts, both linebackers are gonna be free agents, and then key cornerback and Eric Stokes. He's gonna be a free agent as well. And then on the O line, you got Stone Forsythe, Dylan Parham, and Jordan Meredith. Three guys who played over 40% of the snaps at least last year. And then, Max Crosby, he might get traded. He's looking to be traded. So that's a situation for the Raiders to look at there. Obviously, the Raiders don't want to trade him, but if things get bad, I can definitely see them probably maybe dealing him, especially if in the offseason some big news comes out about like first round picks and potentially trading more first round picks. I definitely think Max Crosby is the type of guy who would definitely deserve multiple first round picks.
Yeah, I mean, for defensively, I just put down they need some cornerbacks. Yeah.
Hmm.
hmm
Um, and then now we can move on to the Jets. So the Jets finish now. They have the second overall pick. Um, and they have 11 draft picks in this draft. They're most likely going to be taking Arvel Reese, but why don't you sum up the season? How do we get there for the Jets?
Yeah, I mean, they're in the three-way tie. They finished 3-14. And they're I mean, I just put down like none of their wins were not as impressing just because, they beat the Bengals with no Joe Burrow. Browns who is also like a top 10 pick around, and Falcons with no Penix and Jake London that got hurt. And then I also mentioned that they traded away Sauce Gardner for the two first round picks and Adonai Mitchell, which is, the hugest, season preview, I would say. And yeah, I just added that they had no like consistent QB play, and Brees Hall had his like one of the best season this year.
Yeah. With that, they have 79 million in cap space, so they have some flexibility there. They're bringing back Aaron Glenn as their head coach, but they're gonna have a new offensive coordinator in Frank Reich, who was previously the head coach at Stanford. And then they're bringing in Brian Duker, the pass game coordinator from Miami, to be their defensive coordinator. Um, and then the picks, right? They have two first round picks. They have the Colts first round pick that they acquired from the trade you mentioned, and then they have the Cowboys second round pick from the Quinton Williams trade. So some big free agents that they're going to have is Brees Hall, the running back, Elijah Vera Tucker, their young offensive guard, and Quincy Williams, their linebacker. Not many big free agents. Obviously, each team has their guys, but Justin Fields I added onto that list because he most likely will be cut. The Jets have come out and said they don't like Fields as their future quarterback. So that leads into the offseason. What do you think they want?
Yeah, for positions, I just wrote that quarterback just because they used Justin Fields, Tyrod Taylor, and Brady Cook this season, where Brady Cook, the rookie, looked the best out of those the other two. I wrote that they need some wide receiver help, where I feel like Garrett Wilson's the only top tier wide receiver in that, and then the O line definitely needs some help, and the cornerback also needs some help as well.
I have
Yeah.
QB as well, offensive guard. Obviously with Elijah Vera Tucker being a free agent, that's a big spot to address. I think they should get some help on the D line, on the edge and on the D tackle because they did trade away Quinnen Williams, so it's a position you want to get in the future. And then I think cornerback, like you mentioned, is another position that they should look to invest in. They had no interception on the season. Obviously, not all of that is on the cornerbacks, but part of that helps if you can have ball hawking cornerbacks, right? Aaron Glenn's in a system where you do want to get interceptions, right? I mean, every team wants to get interceptions, but Aaron Glenn ran a defense in Detroit that, really did get some turnovers, and I think it'd be helpful if they can get a cornerback in the draft. Speaking of the draft, right? Obviously, I did some draft prep here. I think their second overall pick is going to be Arvel Reese most likely to address the linebacker position. He can play off the edge as well, so he's kind of a hybrid guy. And with that Colts first round pick, right, I've seen guys say they Ty Simpson as a second quarterback off the draft. I'm not opposed to that, but I think they can address defense too. In this draft, a lot of DBs are going to be, there's a lot of strong middle to late first rounders, early second round DBs. So if they can hit on one of those, I think that'd be a very good spot to hit on. And then, obviously the receivers in this draft are very talented, so I wouldn't be opposed to them going receiver either. Anything else
Yeah.
on the Jets?
Yeah, you mentioned it all, but for huge impact moves, I just said Brees Hall potentially leaving is
Hmm.
a huge one, just because I mean that they would just need a lot of help on the running back core.
Absolutely. We'll
Yeah.
move on to the Titans. The Titans obviously fired their head coach Brian Callahan in the middle of the season. So why don't you recap the season? How do we end up with them having the fourth overall pick?
Yeah, I mean, you already mentioned the coach, and I just wrote that, they finished 3-14. Cam Ward rookie season started out very slow, but then he got into his groove like in the final last stretch, in my opinion. Both running back Pollard and Spears were very helpful in this offense when Cam Ward couldn't get it going. And then Calvin really, he was a big fantasy guy, I'll say. Like coming into the season, people were high on Calvin really just because people were high on Cam Ward as well, but then he was struggling, and then he was limited to play 7 games due to an injury. And yeah,
Yeah, just going off that now, I'm gonna start the offseason preview. So Calvin Ridley you mentioned was a guy who got injured. He's a likely cut candidate. And then Ladarius Sneed, another guy you mentioned, in the defensive injuries. He's
Yeah.
also a guy who's, he's dealing with legal troubles now, and now he's likely to be cut. And that leads us to the money. So the Titans would have $103 million in cap before everything, any cut candidates. Obviously, the cuts would probably get some more money in there. Um, and they're bringing in a new head coach and Robert Saleh, the defensive coordinator for San Francisco. They're bringing in offensive coordinator Brian Dable, who was previously the head coach for the New York Giants, and then they're bringing in defensive coordinator Gus Bradley, who was the assistant coach for San Francisco. So, three new guys all around there. What do you like? What do you want them to look for in this offseason?
Yeah, all season I want them to, I want them to go get Cam Ward some help. Just because Calvin Ridley is like the only solid wide receiver in that core, I'll say, and bunch of low tier wideouts. And then, you know, with a young QB, I feel like you also need a online, I mean a solid online at least. And then this defense needs a lot of help in my opinion. I just wrote down like the whole secondary and edge for
Hmm.
yeah
Absolutely, yeah.
position.
They have 8 draft picks, including the fourth overall pick, and then the third pick in the second round, and the second pick in the third round. So some pretty early picks within each round. Some key free agents, Van Jefferson, a receiver you mentioned, Calvin Ridley, if he gets cut, Van Jefferson going, they're really left with Chimere DK and then Xavier Restrepo, two younger guys, right? So like you said, get Cam some help with the wideouts. Obviously the line as well. I have him looking for right guard as Kevin Zeitler is a free agent. Chiga Okonkwo at tight end is also a free agent. So, they might be aggressive in the tight end market as well. Jahad Ward on the edge, Arden Key, on the D line, and then Darrell Baker at the cornerback position. Three defensive guys who are key free agents. So, you mentioned the positions. I think that's exactly what I have. I have receiver, right guard, the edge, and the cornerbacks. So, really, for me, I think that's exactly what they should be attacking the offseason with that fourth overall pick, right? Either go help Cam Ward or improve that defense. There's really no bad pick there. Just probably take the best player available there. Yeah. Anything else on the Titans before we move on?
No, you mentioned all of them.
Yeah. So we'll go to the Browns now. The Browns have the sixth overall pick. How do we get here?
Yeah, they finished the season 5-12, which is not terrible in my opinion for the Browns. And then I feel like there's a lot of, quality wins. They beat the Packers with a healthy team, Dolphins, Steelers, and even the Bengals. And I just I just stated that, the Browns trusted Shador more than Dylan Gabriel, in my opinion, just because he played two fewer games, but then he still had, 27 more pass attempt and ended up with 463 more passing yards, just a little something, with two less game, by the way. And I also mentioned their rookie running back, Jukens. He was a load-ass running back. He was out a few games. Like, yeah, he was out a few games due to injury, and close to 1,000. No true wide receiver in this team with just Judy, in my opinion, and a bunch of good tight ends such as Njoku and Taro Fannin, the rookie. And I just also mentioned that they balled out in this rookie class and one of the best draft class I ever seen. And then, of course, Myles Garrett breaking the record for the sack.
Yeah, you mentioned the draft class. They had a really strong draft class, especially in the exterior. They have key free agents right now in Cam Robinson, Jack Conklin on the O-line at the tackle position, Wyatt Teller and Joel Bitonio at the guard position, and Ethan Pocic at the center position. So, I mean, they're losing 5 offensive linemen. So that's never good. Um, they have Devin Bush at linebacker, who's a free agent, and Ronnie Hickman at safety, who's a free agent. So, a lot of free agents coming out. Big changes at the head. Kevin Stefanski is out, and now they're bringing in Todd Monken, the offensive coordinator for the Ravens in for head coach, and their defensive coordinator is Mike Ruttenberg, who was the pass game coordinator for Atlanta. Um, and what do you know about the cap situation here?
Yeah, I mean, they have around 300 million in cap
300
space.
million?
3 million, 3 million,
Okay.
3 million. Yeah, yeah. They have 3 million. And you want me to explain the
Yeah, go ahead.
position? Yeah, I just wrote that, they need some wide receiver help. And they obviously need some O-line help with, you know, I heard about this where all their five starting O linemen is currently a free agent, which is a major problem, just because that would mean that you would have to play with the whole backup players, and I think they need a quarterback.
Yeah. I'll go through mine too. I think they should go get a franchise quarterback. I think I like Shadur as, a bridge quarterback, Dylan Gabriel as a bridge quarterback. Deshaun Watson has a lot of money on the books, so, they might be hesitant to cut him or to, bench him. But I'd like them to go get a franchise quarterback. You mentioned the receivers, right? I think they should go get a strong receiver. Obviously, you mentioned it, their entire offensive line is a free agent, so go get linemen, right tackle, right guard, left guard, center. And then on defense, I think they should get a linebacker and a cornerback. Um, but they have 10 draft picks, including the Jaguars' first round pick, obviously in the Travis Hunter trade from last season. So they're in a good spot to get younger guys. And if they hit on their draft picks like they did last year, I really think, this Browns team has potential for success. It's just right now they gotta really figure out what the direction they're heading in, protect a quarterback if they do pick a quarterback in this draft. If not, build the foundation first and then pick a quarterback later. Next year there's a pretty good quarterback class. So the Browns don't have to, pick a quarterback this year in a weaker class. They can wait, but definitely address the offensive line.
Yeah, I think this defense is like a top 10.
Hmm.
I don't know if that's a reach, but this defense is
I
definitely
think
ready
so.
for the playoffs. But just needs a little bit of that little fix. They're almost there
Hmm.
for the defense.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll head up to the Chiefs. Obviously not the season that they expected. Yeah, what do you have for the season review for the Chiefs?
Yeah, I mean, Mahomes got injured in week 15, torn ACL and LCL, which is the biggest season review part in my opinion. And
Hmm.
I mean, even when Patrick Mahomes played, they really didn't play that good just because they're 6'7". When Mahomes played a whole full game, which is still pretty awful from KC where they lost the last four games. And I also added that they barely beat Colts because they're trailing 9-20 starting fourth quarter. If they lost five in a row, I mean, yeah, because they lost five in a row, there was a stretch where, they're very awful. And then Mahomes got hurt against the Chargers. And then Gardner Minshew needed to come in during that stretch. And I mean, I think that's the whole thing. But yeah, and no production out of the running backs such as Pacheco and Hunt. I mean, there was production, but it was very limited. Inconsistent wideout from Rice because he was suspended. Kelsey played, decent, and Andrew Buck on the defense.
Yeah. That gets us to right now. In this offseason, they're gonna have Isaiah Pacheco as a free agent, and so is Kareem Hunt. So that running back position is gonna be one to look at. Marquise Brown at the receiver position is a free agent. Travis Kelce's a free agent. I put him on here, but if he retires, then they'll be losing him. But if he doesn't retire, I have a hard time believing he's gonna go anywhere else other than KC.
Yeah.
Um, on the defense, Charles Omenihu at the edge, Leo Chanel is a free agent at the linebacker. And then Jalen Watson at cornerback, Brian Cook at safety. Those are free agents. So there's pieces out there that the Chiefs got to fix. What do you have for them looking? What do you think they should be looking at in the offseason?
Yeah, I mean, I wrote that they need some D-line help.
Hmm.
And most importantly, I think they need a running back help because, we mentioned Pacheco being not that guy for this offense. I feel like, they could go target a running back in this draft class, and they also need some corner help and some tight end sense. It might be Travis Kelce last season coming up.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, they're bringing in a new offensive coordinator, Eric Bieniemy. So Matt Nagy's out. Bieniemy was the running back coach for Chicago. So we'll see how that one goes. He's been in the system before. They've won Super Bowls with him, so it's not a new face. In the draft, they have six picks, but they don't have a sixth or seventh round pick. It's not that big of a note, but I'm wondering, do they trade back a couple of these picks to get some later round picks, just because they don't have any late round flyers. We'll see how that one goes. And we didn't mention this earlier, but the cap space, they have negative 11 million in cap after Patrick Mahomes restructured in the offseason. So money's not in a great spot right now for free agency. they're gonna have to do some wiggling around. They might have to cut some guys, some maybe trade, but they're gonna have to make up some money. But either way, really interested to see what the Chiefs do this offseason, especially with Patrick Mahomes coming off a big injury.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll move on to now the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals are another team that didn't have a big season, but they also are dealing with injuries. Why don't you run us through their season?
Yeah, they finished 6-11. I added that they had no amazing win, but then lost to the Jets, which is a very disappointing loss. Joe Burrow suffered like a early, early injury, which caused Jake Browning to replace him, but then plays terrible, which forced the Bengals to, trade up for Joe Flacco, who, you know, ended up playing decent. Chase Brown had one of his, oh, Chase Brown had his first ever 1,000 yard season, which, is his best season by so far. And yeah, their rookie DT, Sherman Stewart, was on the IR, and Trey Hendrickson was also limited due to IR.
Yeah. Speaking of Trey Anderson, we'll go right into the free agency. Dalton Risner on offense, at the offensive guard. Starting offensive guard is their biggest free agency on offense. And then on defense, Trey Hendrickson is a free agent. Joseph Asai on the edge is a free agent. Cam Taylor-Britt at cornerback is a free agent. And then Geno Stone at free safety is a free agent. So, they're going to have to replace some guys on defense, and defense was the issue coming into the season. So, what do you have for their offseason? What do you look for them to get?
Yeah, I mean, you you said like you put it on point. I said to be to be honest, a lot of help on defense just because you already mentioned that they have a lot of free agents coming up on defense. So I just put, heavy defense, and I think they need a tight end for the offense though.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like them looking for a tight end on the offense as well. Obviously, we know the receivers are pretty good, right? They have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins locked up long term. Yoshi Voss is a pretty solid third option. Um, and I think they should get a right guard. That's a big position, right? Protect Joe Burrow. And then you mentioned it, a lot of help on defense, right? The edge, the tackles, the linebackers, the cornerback, the safety. I mean,
Yeah.
I have them all listed out, but that's pretty much the whole defense. I don't
Yeah.
know what else. They might have a strong safety that's strong, but other than that, you get anybody on defense is improvement. You mentioned Shamar Stewart was limited this season. He's gonna have to take a big step up, and they have $53 million in cap, which surprised me considering they have Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins on the books for a lot of money.
hmm
But the more I think about it and the amount of help they need on defense, 53 million is not as much as it I thought it was. Um, but yeah, they have 7 draft picks. Pretty traditional. Not really any duplicate picks other than the 6th round. So yeah, pretty traditional set for them. We're gonna see how they do. Anything else on the Bengals?
No, you mentioned it all.
All right, we'll head down to Miami, and the Dolphins. So they fired their head coach Mike McDaniel. They're bringing in Jeff Hafley, and as their head coach, who's a DC in Green Bay, and now they're bringing in Sean Duggan, the linebacker coach in Green Bay, to be their defensive coordinator. What got us here? What's to come here?
Yeah, they ended the season 7-10, which is not terrible, especially with a kind of a difficult schedule, in my opinion. Tua once again did not play, all the 17 game, but and when he did play, he had a concerning stats with 20 touchdown and 15 interception, which, is like a straight up Madden stats in my opinion. And, Devon Achane, best season by a lot. I would say, he's the team's MVP. Tyreek Hill got rolled out of season quickly with one of the scariest leg injury I've seen. And I said, oh yeah, I also said surprisingly the Dolphins did not have a 1,000 yard receiver just because, this offense is very electric with Tyreek Hill when he's healthy, Jalen Waddle, and Devon Achane. So yeah, that's what I added.
Yeah, you kind of hit it on there. Free agents coming up now. Darren Waller is going to be a free agent. Cole Strange on the offensive line. Larry Borom on the right tackle. Rasul Douglas on defense. Jack Jones at the cornerback, and Ashton Davis at safety. So some DBs going to be free agents. What do you have for like some big moves that you see them making?
Like huge impact moves, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just put down QB moves just because I heard that the Dolphins might be looking like for another QB to replace Tua. And then another one is them releasing Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle trade rumors. And I said, what would their wide receiver core be? But I previously saw like this Instagram post where it said they're not trading away Devon Achane and Jalen Waddle.
hmm
Yeah.
yeah, I'll get into my what I think they should get first, or yeah, I'll go into mine what I think they should get. So I think they should obviously go for quarterback, like you mentioned. Tua, he might be a cut candidate there, right? With Tyreek Hill cut and Bradley Chubb cut, right? Receiver is another position where I think they should go for an edge, right, to replace Hill and Chubb. Right guard, fix the offensive line. Every team can use the offensive lineman, so it's kind of traditional. Okay, get an offensive guard. And then the cornerback position, I think, they need some help on the defense. Their DBs, there's a lot of DBs being free agents, and they struggle on the defensive side this year. So I really think they should be working on defense. And they have a cap space of 3 million. So with Bradley Chubb cut and the Tua money, um, I don't know if they can make that much money coming off in the offseason, but they got 3 million to work with. We'll see how they use that money.
Yeah.
All right, now we head to Baltimore, where they lost in the final game of the season. What got us to that final game of the season? Yeah.
Yeah, they finished the season 8-9, which is, they had a good stretch, but started off in a bad side. They lost in a brutal game against the Buffalo Bills, where it was a Sunday night, right? Yeah.
hmm
And that game, they're up big, up 16, I believe.
hmm
They, since they lost, they didn't get into the playoff, which is pretty fun, which is like kind of like flashing just because week one game could, cost you like in the end stretch, Then I just put that 4 week stretch with Lamar being injured. During that stretch, they had a bye, and they weren't that bad where they finished 1-2 without Lamar. Lamar Jackson did not look like his old MVP self, though. He looked a little rusty, but had a crazy last game. Derrick Henry still balled out, but he had a fumble problem, which is a huge problem. Then you need more production from the wideout where it seemed that Zay was the only reliable wide receiver and the only reliable target, in my opinion. And the defense was not as good as previous seasons.
Yeah, absolutely. So that prompted them to let go of head coach John Harbaugh. They bring in Jesse Minter, who's the defensive coordinator at the Chargers, working with Jim Harbaugh, John Harbaugh's brother. They're bringing in offensive coordinator Declan Doyle, who was the offensive coordinator in Chicago. And defensive coordinator they're bringing is Anthony Weaver, who was the defensive coordinator in Miami. Going to the offseason, they have key free agents Isaiah Likely at tight end, Daniel Fale at right guard, and the big one, Tyler Lindenbaum at center. So two big starting offensive linemen at free agents. On the edge, Kyle Van Noy is a free agent. Interiorly, Draymond Jones is a free agent. And then on the DB side, Chidobe Awuzie, Alohi Gilman, and Adarius Washington are all going to be free agents. So on that struggling defense, some guys are going to be shuffled around. And then another note is Nnamdi Madubuike is a retirement candidate. He suffered a neck injury during the season, and we're not sure if he's going to retire, if he's going to come back, and if be the same self. So another guy on the D line on the Ravens who's going to be being looked to be replaced. So what do you have for the positions of need and any impact moves you see?
Yeah, well, obviously, I feel like they need a wide receivers because Zay is the only one, D line, where this D line's getting weak. Running back is a iffy one just because, they have Derrick Henry, but he's getting a little old and could retire soon. They need a cornerback and they need a tight end. Huge impact moves. I said, get Lamar Jackson some help since Isaiah Likely is projected to leave. You already mentioned this new head coach. Well, never mind. And then they added, they should add a little bit of defense.
hmm I have receiver and tight end as well. And then they're losing their starting center, Tyler Lindenbaum, who is a Pro Bowler. So obviously you got to replace him at center if you decide to let him go. And then on defense, the edge, the D tackle, so work on that line, and then the DBs, um, cornerback and safety. Those are two positions that you want to get locked up. Obviously, they still have Roquan Smith at linebacker, so you're pretty set there. And then they have 11 picks, which is tied for second most picks. So they're gonna be able to bring in a haul on in free agency. So the Ravens they have a new system, new head coach, but they're in a decent spot, and they have 22 million in cap, so they're gonna have the ability to go get some guys or re-sign some guys to their needs. So potentially Ravens will be back in the postseason soon.
Yeah.
Um, and then the last team to miss the postseason in the AFC, you have the Indianapolis Colts. What prompted them to miss the postseason this year?
Yeah, they finished the season 8-9, which is a pretty solid season. I said, in my opinion, one of the most disappointing team in the NFL this season, just because they went 8-2 before their bye, but then after the bye, they went 0-7, which does not make any sense at all. Just because I feel like the bye is supposed to make you get better, not worse. But you know what? It is what it is. The injury to Daniel Jones really hurted this offense, in my opinion, which kind of cost us, making Phillip Rivers come out of retirement and. uh, Yeah, JT, Jonathan Taylor dominated the season where he was just putting a video game number in my opinion. Then good production from the wide out, that's what I like to see. And they also traded for the Sauce Gardner.
hmm
Yeah.
So you mentioned the trade for Sauce Gardner, so I'll mention the draft picks. They have 7 picks, but they don't have their first round pick because they traded their first round pick to the Jets in that Sauce Gardner trade. And their first pick is going to be at 47 in the second round. So unless they make any trades, that's going to be their first pick in the draft this year. So not going to be a big team to improve on the draft. Key free agents, they have Daniel Jones, they have Alec Pierce, Braden Smith. Those are three key guys on the offense that are going to be in free agency. On defense, Kwity Paye, Samson Ebukam, Jermaine Pratt, and Nick Cross are going to be free agents. So some guys on defense as well, free agents. And then some cut candidates I saw were Michael Pittman. If they bring back Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman could be a cut candidate there. And then Grover Stewart on the defensive line might be a cut candidate to improve their money. Right now, their money situation is they have 35 million in cap. So yeah, with that money, what do you think they should do in the offseason?
Yeah, I think they should go get themselves a linebacker, edge, quarterback since Daniel Jones is becoming a free agent. They're gonna find that somehow. And then wide out since, they're one of their best wide receiver, Alec Pierce, is becoming a free agent as well.
hmm I have their position at quarterback, obviously, with Daniel Jones. Even if he comes back, he's coming off an Achilles injury, so he might not be ready for the start of the season. You mentioned the receiver, right? They're losing Alec Pierce, who had a breakout year this year. Right tackle, the offensive line help. And then all three levels, I have the edge rushers for the Colts. I have the linebackers, get some linebacker help, and then the strong safety position on the back end. So, all three levels on defense could get some help. So any defensive guys that they draft can be good, or sign. And then offensively, you got to take care of that quarterback position as we saw, got to be able to have a quarterback to thrive in this league.
Yeah.
Now we move on to the playoffs where we have the Steelers. Um, yeah, what do you have on the Steelers?
I just I didn't put down their full record, but I just said they had a very good season. Their loss to the Browns in the last stretch, was very iffy. And then they barely beat the Ravens, which is also very iffy because it was the week right after. They got bounced in the first round with no wideout play. The wide receivers did not help at all. Houston dominated. Aaron Rodgers had a pretty good solid season, but definitely needs some help with, he was only throwing to DK Metcalf, who is not that consistent wide receiver for the wide receiver one. And then he was throwing to a bunch of other tight ends and some running backs like Gainwell and Warren. And then, the backfield. They're splitting backfield Warren and Gainwell, where both of them were dominating. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. And I just put down, DK got suspended for 2 games for punching a fan. Yeah, for punching a fan at the Lions game.
Yeah. And with that, Mike Tomlin is stepping down at the head coach spot. They bring in Mike McCarthy, who was previously the head coach in Dallas. On the offensive coordinator side, they brought in Brian Angiccio, which is the pass game coordinator and tight end coach in Minnesota. And the defensive coordinator now is Patrick Graham, who was the DC in the Raiders. For the draft, they have 12 picks, including five top 100 picks in the draft. So they're going to have opportunities to pick some young guys. And this is the most picks in the draft, 12 is. So they're going to bring in, if they keep all their picks and make the picks, it's going to bring a big haul. And that's going to really help because they have some aging guys and some free agents. Aaron Rodgers at quarterback is obviously a free agent and he's contemplating retirement. Kenneth Gainwell is a free agent. So, you mentioned the split backfield. If they want to keep that split backfield, they're going to have to shell out some money to bring him in. Calvin Austin at receiver is a free agent. Isaac Semalu at left guard is a free agent. And then on defense, the DBs, Asante Samuel and James Pierre are free agents at the cornerback position. And Kyle Duggar at safety is a free agent. And then I have Cam Hayward as a retirement candidate. He's considering it. We don't know if he's gonna be back, but if he does retire, they're gonna probably want to improve that D line as well. What else do you think they should improve? Any moves that you see them making?
Yeah, you mentioned all of them. I said you didn't say wide receiver, right?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, I just said out a new one. I said wide receivers because there's no one reliable, and even DK Metcalf is iffy. And then I wrote down cornerback because from what I was looking at, a lot of cornerback free agent in this team.
Absolutely, yeah. Positions in need, I have quarterback, receiver, left guard, D tackle, and cornerback. Right, D tackle obviously because of Cam Hayward, cornerbacks like you mentioned, and then receivers, you mentioned it. There wasn't a big production from the receiver side, so they definitely might go out and look for a receiver there.
Yeah.
Now we move on to the Chargers. A lot of injuries on this year, but what else happened this year for the Chargers?
Yeah, they finished the season with 11-6, which is a very solid season. They started the season 3-0, where the Chargers fans were all excited, and Justin Herbert finishes just below 4,000, which is because he played one last game. His touchdown, his touchdown and interception ratio was like 2-1, which is kind of iffy in my opinion. But then, and the running back, I said Hampton, rookie running back, got injured where his season was limited. What was it? Yeah, and then the wide receiver stuff, Lad Keaton and shockingly Quentin Johnston, they were very amazing this year. Where Johnston, I feel like no one, actually not no one, but like he was known for dropping balls. He was a mean guy, but this year he was able to fix that hand. And they also added Gaston, a rookie tight end who definitely made a name for himself. And I feel like the O line needs to get better still, just because Justin Herbert was staying out there.
hmm
Yeah.
yeah, you said it. O-line is a big issue, and free agency wise, they have Trey Pickens, Zion Johnson, Kai Becton, who are free agents, and then Bradley Bozeman, who's a potential cut candidate on the O-line as well. So they dealt with injuries, but they also have some free agents coming up. Odafe Owe on the edge and Khalil Mack on the edge are both free agents. Tyler Tart at the defensive tackle spot, and then Tony Jefferson at the safety spot are going to be free agents. They do have 82 million in cap, which is among the top in the league. They have six draft picks though, so this offseason is going to be a lot based on free agency. They do have their first four picks though, the Chargers do. So, they're going to be looking in free agency with the money they have. What do you want them to improve and some big moves you see them making?
Yeah. I wrote down edge just because Khalil Mack, like what you said, might depart. Wide receiver could get some help. Maybe like one more wide receiver just because Keenan Allen's a free agent and he's getting old. Fixing the D line, a lot of free agents. And then O line, they could, definitely afford some depth just because when like a lot of these O line got injured, I feel like they have no depth at all. Where Justin Herbert was like struggling for his life. Yeah,
Yeah. Um, So that puts us in the offseason where they have Mike McDaniel coming in as their new offensive coordinator. He was previously the head coach in Miami. And then defensive coordinator, they're bringing in Chris O'Leary, who's the defensive coordinator at Western Michigan. So some new moves there. And like I said, there was a lot of cap space there. So it's gonna be really interesting to see who they bring in to fix this team up with the money they have.
Yeah. I mean, just to add something, I feel like this offense will be a lot more exciting to watch and a lot more explosive. Yeah.
Now one of the shocking teams of the season that you, Justin, actually had was really high on in the season this year. So, shout out to there. The Jacksonville Jaguars, they finished atop their division and they lost a heartbreaking game in the division or in the wild card round. But, why don't you recap their season for us?
Yeah, they finished the season very hot, 13-4. Yeah, 13-4 was just one of the best in the AFC and in the league with a few good wins. But their only bad loss, in my opinion, was to the Texans, where, they're up 29-18 starting fourth quarter. And the Texans quarterback was Davis Mills, just because CJ Stroud was, I'm pretty sure, was concussed. Then, mid-season they traded for Jacoby Myers, Hunter, who made me high on the Jaguars. He had a season-ending injury, and then Parker Washington breakout season where not none of us, but it was unexpected. Then Brian Thomas Jr. just another mid-year. Strange is a very good tight end for the Jaguars. Then Trevor Lawrence had one of his best season in the NFL. Etienne is shining bright.
Yeah. You mentioned ETN, so I'll get there. ETN is gonna be a free agent this offseason. So a lot of free agents running backs in this class. So we're gonna see how they go there. ETN is one of them. And then on defense, Devin Lloyd, one of the big producers, is gonna be a free agent, as well as Greg Newsome and Monteric Brown at the DB position. And then Andrew Wingard at safety is gonna be free agent. So what do you have them pursuing in the offseason? What do you think they should have, especially as the Jaguars aren't bringing in any new coaches? So it's gonna be the same staff, so they're gonna be building out on what they built this year. What do you like them to go get? Any positions, any players?
Yeah, I mean, you hit it like right on dot. I said they need a linebacker, and you said like Devin Lloyd is set to become a free agent where you like mark that. I said they also need safeties just because I, to be honest, like I don't know much of these current stars, so that's definitely a red flag there. And I feel like they need some cornerback as well, just because their best cornerback is set to become a free agent this year.
Yeah. Any impact moves you see them making?
Yeah, I mean, I just said they need to bring back ETN just because he's definitely one of the best running back, and they also gotta fix the O line for their future running back and Trevor Lawrence, and then I feel like they should add some ball hawks on this defense where this season, the, or like earlier on the season, they were able to get turnovers, which definitely helped the defense a lot. And then yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, I know I saw this on your notes, but I'll mention it anyways. They're negative 13 million in the cap. So if they don't do some free agency, some money changing, they're potentially going to lose Travis Etienne. So that's one of the big things they got to do. But they do have 10 picks in this draft. Unfortunately, they don't have their first round pick. Obviously, they traded to the Browns for Travis Hunter, and Travis Hunter's coming back next season. So their first pick's gonna be in the second round, the 24th pick, unless they make a trade, obviously, same as the Colts. Um, yeah, and positions of need, obviously, running back, right? You bring back ETN or you go out and get somebody who can replace him. And then on the defensive tackle, linebacker, like you said, cornerback, free safety. Those are all positions I think they can improve on. They can get some solid names on there.
Yeah.
Now we move on to the Buffalo Bills. Um, Heartbreaking ending to their season. What got us to that last game against the Broncos?
Yeah. They finished the season 12-15, which is a pretty good season for this Bills.
12-5.
12-5, yeah. And yeah, I feel like the Bills were not on their A plus tier this season. but they still managed to, finish 12 and 5, like what you said. Josh Allen played decently. He did not play like his past MVP years where, you know, he got sacked a lot this year. O-line couldn't support, but another strong year in the ground. James Cook had was definitely a top three running back this year, but just like Derrick Henry, he had fumble problems. Was I don't know what's up with these top tier running back with their fumbling problem, but yeah. Then I saw once again another year without any reliable wide receiver production. Both tight end were top three for yards, and then defense struggled, which made life way much harder for Josh Allen.
Yeah. Um, Absolutely. So going into this year, they fired Sean McDermott on the defensive side. So they bring in Joe Brady, who's the offensive coordinator for Buffalo last year. At the offensive coordinator position, they're bringing in Pete Carmichael Jr., who's a senior offensive assistant in Denver. And then on defensive coordinator side, they're bringing in Jim Lenhard, who is the assistant head coach and defensive pass game coordinator for Denver. So a couple of Denver guys coming in. Um, they have negative 12 million in cap. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with the money, especially since they paid Josh Allen last offseason. In the draft, they have 7 picks. It's just going to be a regular slate other than their 6th round pick. And then some key free agents they have are Brandon Cooks at the receiver position, David Edwards at the left guard, Connor McGovern, their starting center, and then on defense, Joey Bosa and AJ Epinesa on both edges, Daquan Jones at D tackle, Matt Milano, a big key starter at linebacker, and then DBs they have Tre'Davious White and Jordan Poyer, who are older guys, but key players there. So what are you looking at for their positions of need and their big moves in the offseason?
Yeah, I'll start off with wide receiver. It's hard to win games without a true wide receiver one, in my opinion. Then cornerback, they definitely need some help. O-line for sure, just because Josh Allen was getting, sacked a lot of times from what I saw. Linebacker and safety, just because their top players from for both of those positions are set to become a free agent.
Yeah. I have receiver as well. I think they should get a left guard and center, right? Picks up the interior of their offensive line. On the defensive side, edge DT, right? Fix up that D line. They gotta replace or bring back Matt Milano. And then DBs, you mentioned is safeties, cornerbacks, both are positions of need. Um, and yeah, you any big moves in the offseason you looked at them to make?
Yeah, I mean, I just wrote down, change head coach, and I just wrote that this defense might be cooked just because a lot of these stars are free agent and they're also in negative caps, so it's gonna be, a
Mhm.
very hard offseason for them.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll move on to the Texans, another team that lost in the divisional round. The Texans, yeah, how do we get to them in the divisional round?
Yeah, their final record was 12 and 5. Started off the season very slow, 0 and 3, but since then they went off. They beat the Steelers, but then lost to the Patriots in divisional round. They got bounced. I mean their defense played very good in my opinion, and CJ Stroud, he had a lot of turnover issues that game. Davis Mills started for 3 games, won all of those 3 games, shockingly, and showing the true role of a good backup QB. Just when your QB1 gets hurt and their backup quarterback should come in and wins some game at least, or like half of the games in my opinion. Then, like what I've said a little bit, CJ Stroud played pretty well in regular season. When it came to the playoff, he had a problem with fumble and interception problems. The backfield, the backfield is pretty good with their rookie running back Woody Marks, and then Chubb, who looks old and definitely does not look good, who I think will retire soon. They only had 9 rushing touchdowns, which kind of surprises me. This defense, is one of the best, and yeah, it's one of the best.
Yeah, absolutely. So, right now they're at negative 4 million in cap. They can definitely maneuver around that. I don't think that's gonna be a big issue. But they have 9 total draft picks, including a 28th overall pick. Key free agents, Nick Chubb, you mentioned him being older, Christian Kirk, another older guy, Trent Brown on the O-line, and Ed Ingram on the offensive line. And on defense, they don't have really that many big free agents. Sheldon Rankins at D tackle and EJ Speed at linebacker, but that secondary that was elite, the edge rushers who are elite. Both are going to be coming back. And then another guy, Joe Mixon, he's a cut candidate. He was injured a lot during the season. And you mentioned that Woody Marks looked pretty good in his rookie season. So if the Texans decide they want to let go of Joe Mixon, they can definitely let go of him, get some money back for free agency. Speaking of free agency and the draft, what do you look at them to improve on?
Yeah, I mean, most importantly, I think, they should get a O-line help for sure just because C CJ Stroud, that playoff performance was one of the terrible performances from what I saw just because he couldn't. I mean, every single draft from what I was watching, I feel like he would turn over the ball somehow at least. Then their DT is set, but I feel like, they could draft some DT in my opinion. Then what we said for running back, Joe Mixon is a cook candidate. Chubb is getting old. I feel like, they could get Woody Marks some help with, yeah, split backfield. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Running back is a position I have a need. And then on the O-line, the right side, right tackle, right guard, and their center. And then on defense, not many big free agents coming up. So just a D tackle and a strong safety maybe. But I think this offseason is really be running back and offensive line help for the Texans. They don't have that much cap space, but they have a solid team. So I don't see the Texans being a team that makes a lot of moves. Just some good surrounding moves would help.
Yeah, for sure.
Now we move on to the Denver Broncos. The Broncos are coming in into the offseason probably thinking they should have been in the Super Bowl. Maybe they think they could have won the Super Bowl. But what got us to here?
Yeah. They had a very, very good season. They went 14 and 3. Two of those two of those losses was early on, and I feel like they should have won. And if you guys, rewatch the game, I think that you guys would agree with me just because, one of the loss from what I remember was against the Colts. It was over the back foul, right? Is that what it's called?
I think it was a leaping.
Yeah, leaping. It was a leaping where the Colts literally missed it, but then, they got bailed out, I would say, was, is a thing. Chargers, same thing. They got a game-winning kick. I mean, Bo Nix, he started off the season very slow, but then progressed as the season went on. And then a much better, actually not a much better, but he had a better season this year. J.K. Dobbins, another season-ending injury. I mean, I guess it's not a season-ending injury, right? Or would it
Did he?
count?
I don't think he played in the postseason, so I guess it counts as one. But I don't
I
think
mean,
they called it a season ender.
yeah, because he would have played in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, but it basically was a season ender since he
Yeah,
didn't play for the rest of the year. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it was a season-ending injury, which has been ruining his career. Injury in general. RJ Harvey, he was a rookie, had a very, very solid season. Then I said another good productive year from Sutton, fan favorite there. Troy Franklin impressed a lot of the Denver fans this year. But most disappointing player I feel is Evan Ingram, because we thought he was gonna be a huge part of this offense. That I just wrote that Dre Greenlaw injury continues to bug his season again. But then this Denver defense, continues to shine this season. But most like bad news, I guess, is Bo Nix injury against the Bills, which cost the whole season.
Yeah. Um, you hit a lot of the points there. I'll mention the free agents. They have J.K. Dobbins as a free agent, Adam Trautman at tight end. On the O-line, Alex Pozeski at offensive tackle. Defensively, they have John Franklin Myers, Alex Singleton, Justin Strand, and Jaquan McMillan, all as free agents there. And then a cut candidate, you mentioned Evan Ingram just now. He's a cut candidate, right? Disappointing season from him. It's interesting to see maybe they could move on to a new tight end there. Um, and then just a real coaching thing. They're promoting Davis Webb, who's a pass game coordinator in Denver, to the offensive coordinator position. So with that change, new voice in the offensive huddle or offensive on the offensive mics. But what do you have for them in the offseason? What positions, what players, any impact moves, what do you have for there?
Yeah, I mean, Sun is a great wide receiver, but I just said they should go after a wide receiver two-ish, like maybe someone like Tyreek Hill or just any wide receiver in general. they could definitely get a running back just because Sean Payton loves running a split backfield, tight end for sure. Just because you have said Evan Ingram is a cut candidate, linebacker Stranad and Singleton is becoming a free agent. Huge part of the defense, and then they also gotta sign John Franklin Myers and PG Lock, in my opinion.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, in terms of positions, you hit everything I have except D tackle. I think they can probably add another D tackle there just to bolster the offensive line or defensive line. Sorry. Um, and yeah, I mean they have 29 million, just under 29 million in cap, so they have some room to do something. It's just going to be like you said, re-signing some of their key guys on their defense, and then improving their weapons, right? Receiver, running back, tight end. I think that's where you hit in the drafts where they have 8 picks in the draft. Um, yeah, we'll move on to the
Yeah.
last team now. The New England Patriots coming off a Super Bowl loss. What led us to the Super Bowl there?
Yeah, they're 14-3, which is a very, very good season record-wise, but I still think they had a very easy schedule. The A's continue. I said three three loss, they could have won. Actually, yeah, this team could have went, undefeated, which is pretty shocking. Bills was a, very close game. They lost to the Steelers and the Raiders in week one. Then they got demolished in the Super Bowl by the Seattle Seahawks. Drake May put up MVP numbers though. A lot of touchdown, not that much interception, but got sacked way too much. The split backfield was very productive from Stevenson, who got injured a little bit. Henderson, who's a rookie running back from OSU, he was very sneakily close to a 1,000 yard rushing. Where, I was looking at the stats and I was like shocked that he was close to 1,000. Then, I was hating on this defense, as you can see, but shout out to this defense, this defense was very legit. This D line was pretty good at stopping the run. And of course, Christian Gonzalez. I hate the Oregon Ducks as well, but this guy is a stud.
Hmm. Um, Yeah, you mentioned it. They have 11 picks in this draft, which is tied for the most, or second most in the NFL. So they're gonna have picks to make. They're gonna get younger, right? The team's already pretty young. They're gonna get younger. Some free agents they have Austin Hooper at tight end, Morgan Moses on the O tackle, and then on defense they have Kayvon Chason at edge, Kyrus Tonga at D tackle, Jack Gibbons at linebacker, and Jalen Hawkins at the safety position, right? They're bringing in Zach Kerr, who's the inside linebacker coach in New England, to be their defensive coordinator. So yeah, what do you have for the positions of need and their huge impact moves?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they need wide receiver and tight end because Stephon Diggs getting old and tight end. I, who's a tight end right now?
Hunter Henry.
Yeah, I mean Hunter Henry is a like a like C tier tight end, I'd say. Then I feel like they could, definitely increase the O line just because Drake May was getting pressured a lot from what I was seeing, and safety could be a huge upgrade as well.
Yeah. You mentioned a tight end there and right tackle. In my opinion, right tackle and center. I think those are two positions where they can upgrade there. Obviously, if they trust Will Campbell, he'll improve, right? Morgan Moses on the other side is getting older and he's a free agent, so that's a spot to improve, especially on the O line. And then you said at the edge rushing, gotta get pressure there. And then I also have DT and free safety. DT is kind of iffy because they do have two very solid D tackles in Milton Williams and Christian Barmore. But I think adding a third D tackle or edge rusher there is kind of either or would really help their D line, especially on the ends. And then safety, yeah, get some help on the defensive back department. And they have 40.5 million in cap, so they're gonna have money to work with this offseason. They were big spenders last offseason. And there's nothing to say they won't be big spenders this offseason either. So that's the AFC previews. Anything of note for any of these teams that you want to get going with?
I mean, yeah, for I also, added edge for the Patriots, and then
Mhm.
yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right. Before we get out of here, the combine's going to start next week. I know you don't watch college ball that much. You're not familiar with that many guys, but are there any positions, skill position guys you're really interested to see their metrics? I know you watch some college ball. You watch the playoffs, you watch the regular season. Any guys you're particularly noting, just intrigued?
I mean, there's some position I'm interested in. I heard this is the a very good wideout class from like
Yeah,
Makai
absolutely.
Lemon, Cornell Tate and stuff.
hmm
And I also heard it's a very good, cornerback class.
Cornerback, yeah.
Yeah,
A light like I think it's a solid wide receiver class, solid cornerback class. There's some good edge rushers. The top tier edge rushers are getting pretty good there. Positions that are not that great, I would say running back and quarterback. I think if you're drafting a running back and quarterback, you should probably wait in the later rounds, try to hit on a mid-round type of guy. It's not going to be one of those, 2024 drafts where there's six quarterbacks taken in the top 12, right? Not one of those drafts. That's going to be 2027, where you have Arch Manning, Garrett Nussmeier, right? Those are some guys that might come out next year. Um, yeah, and I'm interested, like you said, the receivers. There's gonna be a lot of receivers. I'm interested to see the metrics, who rises, who falls in this draft, and if anybody, they cement their name, maybe go from a second round pick to a first round pick, or build on something that they have, maybe jump into the top 10 there. But you know. It's gonna be fun. Good off season. We'll catch you guys next Saturday for the NFC preview. Um,
yeah,
and then while we get out of here, shout out Justin. You hear he sounded a little sick, but he got it done, got his research done, got the grind. So big appreciation to Justin. Looking forward to his research for next week. Hopefully he feels a little better. Peace.
yeah, for sure. Peace.